Hello and welcome to the interview here on France 24. Our guest today is Ukraine's Prime Minister, Arseny Yatsenyuk. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much for coming on the France 24 set. You are in Paris meeting with top French officials. You just met with the French president. At the same time, Ukraine's President Petro Poroshenko is in Berlin for a meeting with Chancellor Angela Merkel. At the same time, John Kerry, the US Secretary of State, just had a meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov. We're just 3 months exactly after the signing of the so-called Minsk Accords. The situation has improved on the ground, but are you still concerned that there could be a flare-up of violence in eastern Ukraine once again?
Well, thanks for hosting. It's my pleasure. You're absolutely right saying that everyone is engaged in the process of de-escalating the situation in Ukraine, and we are all eager to implement this so-called Minsk deal. We have on the table just the Minsk deal, which is still valid, and we expect that Russia is to implement and to execute the deal. What are the crucial aspects of this Minsk deal? First and most important is to hold the real ceasefire.
That's not happening.
Well, look, we lost 83 soldiers after the ceasefire was announced. 377 were injured. There is an ongoing rolling shellings. And this is Russia, who is personally responsible for the violation of ceasefire. We've got the reports, and we distributed these reports of the OSCE, when it is absolutely clear that the Russian-led terrorists violate the Minsk deal. So this is one of the first, most crucial and important aspects. Another one is that Russia is obliged to pull back its forces, heavy weapon and ground forces. And the third issue is to seal the border. This is the best way to show the political will of Russian regime really to implement and execute the Minsk deal and to preserve peace and stability in Ukraine and in Europe. It's not just about Ukraine.
Are you, on your side, implementing the part of the deal, especially political reforms, granting more autonomy to those regions that has also lacked? And there's been some criticism in the West about the pace of those reforms.
I want to be very clear. We do understand that Russian aim is to launch the blame game. Who is responsible for not implementing and executing the deal? The president and the government are whiter than white in implementing the Minsk deal and not allowed anyone to use this as an excuse. Look, let's talk only about facts. The fact is that the Russian-led terrorists violate the ceasefire. The fact is that my government is ready to hold free and fair elections, but it's impossible to have free and fair elections under the barrel of the Russian gun. The fact is that we asked OSCE and ODIHR to consider whether the criteria for free and fair elections are in place in Donetsk and Lugansk. So we are ready to have these elections in order to talk to the legitimate government, but not to allow Russians to legitimize these terrorists through so-called elections.
So the situation is blocked right now on that part.
The situation is blocked on the part of Russia. But we started so-called working groups that are focused on security, economic, and political issues. The trilateral group, which is to comprise OSCE, Russia, and Ukraine. So we are eager to implement everything and to deliver everything we are committed to. But too much, if not everything, depends on Putin, whether he wants peace and stability.
So what are the Russian intentions? Right now, there is less violence. Do you think, we've seen that in the past, after the first Minsk agreements, there was a kind of lull on the violence, then it started again. Do you think we could see yet another spate of violence in eastern Ukraine? Do you think this is what Russia, and especially Vladimir Putin, have in mind?
You've asked a very important question. Is it just relates to Ukraine, or this has a broader scope? What is the ultimate goal of President Putin? He is not just fighting with Ukraine. He is not just fighting against us. He's fighting with you. He's fighting against the Western world. He's fighting against the free world. He's fighting against the EU, as the stability in Russia lies in instability in the European Union. So Ukraine just became a battlefield. And we have to give an appropriate response. We have to stay united. We have to urge Russia to implement the Minsk deal. We have to deter Russia from further invasion. Because look, they consolidated hundreds of thousands of troops.
But what is happening on the ground? What are you seeing? What are you fearing? Do you think Russia is ready to pull back, or do you think they're preparing for yet a new offensive on the ground?
Let's again rely only on facts. Look at the public reports of NATO and Pentagon, and I believe that your government has similar reports as you have intel sharing. So we estimate that more than 40,000 Russian military boots are on the ground, both Russian regular forces and Russian-led guerrillas. Hundreds of tanks, hundreds of howitzers, multiple missile rocket launchers, SA-11 and SA-22. So armed to the teeth Russian-led gang. What the hell they are doing on the Ukrainian territory? Just playing military games? Definitely they are plotting new offensive operation.
So do you fear a full-blown war in Ukraine?
We are at the state of war. Due to Russian aggression, we already lost Crimea, as Russia illegally annexed Crimea. They invaded Donetsk and Lugansk. We lost more than 7,000 lives. For what? For far-right nationalistic sentiments of Russia. So this is our joint quest, the quest of Ukraine and the free world for freedom and liberty. We have to stop this aggression.
How do you do this? Sanctions, more sanctions? It seems that the message being sent to Russia is, well, if you hold back, if you don't go further, sanctions will be lifted.
There is no simple answer. This is to be a comprehensive approach. You've mentioned sanctions. Well, they've played an effective role in deterring Russia. It's crystal clear that Russia is to pay the price. So one of the key pillars of this deterrence policy is to scale up sanctions, and in case if Russia is not to meet all obligations under the Minsk deal. Another one is diplomatic and political efforts. Well, I want to be very clear that there is no chance to go back to business as usual with Russia until Russia fully implements the Minsk deal and until Russia gets out of Crimea.
So was it a mistake to see John Kerry going to Russia for the first time in 2 years to meet Vladimir Putin in Sochi? Was it sending the wrong message? Was it too early for him to go there?
Well, we do understand that there are a number of issues on the radar of the global powers, including ISIS, Yemen, and the rest of the stuff. But my message is that, look, Sochi is definitely not the best resort and not the best place to have a chat with Russian president and Russian foreign minister.
So the US is sending the wrong message by reaching out to Russia at this stage.
Well, Russia will definitely misuse this, saying that, look, we are not isolated. We still have contacts. We still have a collaboration. So we did nothing wrong. But I expect that during the meeting, John Kerry sent a very strong signal of support of Ukraine. That's my strong belief.
The European Union, are you...
We missed one thing when we discussed an issue of how to manage this process, how to tackle the problem with Russian aggression. I indicated economy, politics, diplomacy, but I have to mention military aspect. We never asked for the offensive weapon. We asked for the defensive one. Look, Russians still supply well-modernized and well-equipped military warfare. We need to defend our country. And we need to defend not just our country, and your borders too. One can say that you are too far from...
Are you disappointed by the attitude of the US and the European Union on this very point?
Well, I would be happy to see more decisiveness in terms of supply to Ukraine, only a defensive weapon to protect and to preserve peace and stability, not for the offensive operation.
On the economic side, are you disappointed by the attitude of the European Union because they're asking you for lots of very substantive reforms and this being as a condition for more support? Do you think this is the bad way of framing things?
Well, we've introduced and passed a number of very painful and tough reforms. My government already passed 3 austerity packages. We've frozen all salaries, all wages. We've already fired 10% of public servants, and another 20 is expected to be fired. We imposed new taxes. We closed a number of tax loopholes. We eradicated corruption in the energy sector. We do a huge pile of things which are necessary, despite the fact that I personally, as a prime minister, already paid the political price. Just imagine, for example, if your prime minister goes to your fellow citizens saying that, look, we have to frozen all social expenditures. We have to shut down all social entitlement programs.
So does it bother you when you're asked to do more by the European Union saying, you know, we need to see more from you and you think you're doing already enough?
The good news is that after the EU-Ukraine summit, the EU issued a clear statement praising the reforms that have been already undertaken by the Ukrainian government. We have to do more. That's true for the future of this country. In terms of financial support, well, we appreciate the support we received. The key thing with what we discussed with your president, and I hope I am to discuss with your prime minister, we are not just begging for money. We need to bring this country, my country, back to work. We need an investment. And this is a two-way street. This is for the benefit of both of us, for France and for Ukraine. We have a number of sectors of mutual cooperation: energy, agriculture, IT. So we can do a lot of good things together.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. That's all we have time for. But thank you again for coming on the France 24 set. And thank you for watching this edition of The Interview. Stay tuned here on France 24 for more news.
Merci.